I'm Kier.
I'm Haley.
And I'm Jay from Gallifrey Public Radio,
A podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network.
just like the one you're listening to right now.
The opinions expressed are those of each individual.
Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And get ready, because geekiness begins in 3,
2,
1.
This is the official GonnaGeek.com show. Here we're a bunch of geeks talking about geeky things. Each week we run down the latest news and happenings in the world of geek. These are your hosts for the show, Steven.
But what if I'm in the mood for a T-Swift story?
Chris.
I've heard the X is going to give it to you.
And SP.
That's how we roll on Gonna Geek on Monday night. We get crazy!
Gonna Geek Productions presents the official GonnaGeek.com show.
Hello and welcome to episode 229 of the official GonnaGeek.com show. I am Steven Jondrew, and with me, of course, is Chris Farrell. We also have the man who doesn't give 1990s references, Stargate Pioneer.
That's because I give 1980s references like Ready Player One, baby! Just a couple of weeks, ready to roll!
And I am very pleased, very pleased to say today that we have the one and only Michelle Ealey.
Canadian dominance over curling is over.
You know, it's amazing. It seems like everybody that I know who's American has been trying so hard to get into curling this year. I can't believe it. I'm very impressed. Very impressed.
Yeah, America is going to start their own curling junior league to compete with the defunct Canadian junior league, which they no longer have.
Allegedly defunct. We don't know yet. We're not totally 100% sure that it was defunct, but I think it's a safe assumption at this point.
I think Steven took the money and ran from the Junior Canadian Curling League. That's what happened.
Okay, so this is a callback for those of you who missed this episode. A few episodes ago, I ended up sharing the story that I did a little bit of a in-school internship type thing that was for the Canadian junior curling, I don't know, some broadcasting type thing. And the fun fact about that was it was supposed to be a paid internship, to which my check never made it in the mail.
That's why he robbed them blind and shut them down afterwards.
Yeah, so we are here today to talk about the latest happenings in the world of geek. If you're not familiar with us, you should definitely check us out. We are on the Gonna Geek Network, and you can check out the full back catalog at GonnaGeek.com/show. Each week, we'll talk about a few news stories and then do a fun segment that is unrelated to the news, or is it related? Ooh, that's always dependent on the week. And this week, we do have the one and only guest, Michelle Ealey, as I mentioned. Michelle, why don't you take a moment here to plug and promote yourself and tell everybody where they can find you?
Well, I'm a co-host of the Starlight Tribune, a podcast on the GonnaGeek.com network, along with SP and Chris. I am also consultant Michelle on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. And you can find me on Twitter at Michelle Ealey, and sometimes I write things, and just follow me.
I can confirm that there is, in fact, a contract to have Michelle on Starling Tribune. However, as consultant on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's under the table.
Oh, IRS is getting a phone call. Let's go ahead and move into the news. Here we go. All right, so this week in the news, we'll start off with my news point here, which is about Android. If you're not familiar with Android, Android is an operating system that runs a plethora of gadgets, including phones.
Say what?
Of course. No, Android is actually coming out with a new version called Android Go. It's essentially a more light streamed version of Android. Chris probably knows all about Android Go. He seems to be all in the touch with it, but we're looking like we're getting our first Android Go experience coming from the company called Alcatel. Is that how you say their name? I think that's how you say their name.
That's why I didn't know anything about it.
They unveiled a new range of smartphones at MWC and they're all at a fraction of the cost of an S8 or like an iPhone 10 or iPhone regular. The idea is that they're going to be a lot cheaper, and the Alcatel One X is going to have the new Android Go platform on it, which is, of course, a new operating system that essentially cuts down the app sizes by half and offers new takes on things like the Google Assistant. It's really geared towards those super entry-level phones, the ones that are running the older hardware. And that's the idea of this Android Go, is it's just going to be a lot more streamlined. And I don't know, I'm not a big fan myself of making a spin-off version of Android, because Android's so fractured as it is. I would like to see Google and whatnot just stay with Android and then let people modify it. I don't like the idea of them making a, quote, Android Go.
They've talked about doing similar stuff in the past to have the lighter version that works on older hardware and things like that. It's been one of the big points of motivation, I think, starting with Lollipop. They were trying to say, hey, we've optimized this, so it should work on all your old hardware. But yeah, it doesn't always. Try putting Oreo on your Nexus 5. It's shaky. It's shaky.
Let me ask you this, SP. You are a lover of the iPhone things. Does this make you care more or less about Android?
If I'm going to go Android, I want to be a power user on Android. So I'm going to get one of the newer, more advanced phones like the Pixel 2 XL, like the Note 9 by the time I get around to it, or the higher LG phones. So I don't really care about this, but if this would work on my Note 3, then maybe. I mean, I already have it, so I could screw around with it, but my motivation level is not that high.
My concern with it, of course, is the fact that we might end up seeing some problem with app compatibility. That always seems the way you go when you get a spin-off OS, is all of a sudden there's app compatibility. We've seen that within Windows itself forever now. With when was the first time they added the store? Was it Windows 7? It's 8. Just 8? Okay.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Windows phones.
Well, that too. That too. But
what's that?
I'm talking about the desktop. When you look and you all of a sudden have an app center in something that is a mainstream device, you're now having problems because it's a spin-off. That's what the Windows App Store is on the desktop. And we just see that that's a failure. And so now you're going to have this spin-off of Android. I don't know. I'm not wild about it, but it's interesting to see that Alcatel is going to be the first one. So get your stocks in now about Alcatel.
You mean purchase stock? Are you giving stock purchase advice now on the GonnaGeek.com show?
No, I'm waiting for our financial nerf center correspondent to tell me about how that saying that I just said about get your stocks in now is completely wrong.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely wrong. Plus, I wouldn't invest there personally. But hey, knock yourself out, Steven. If you want to invest, go for it. Go for it.
I thought you were fully invested in SP's used space shuttle emporium, Chris. That's what I thought you were.
I'm a secret investor. You're not supposed to tell people that. Come on. Come on. We can't reveal that relationship live on the internet. Nobody should know about the space conglomerate that SP and I are developing.
You got a sweet deal on that used Soviet shuttle there, so, you know.
Da, comrade.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to our next news point here. And this one is going to come courtesy of Elon Musk. And Elon Musk's official GonnaGeek.com representative, he is here to tell you all about it. Go ahead, official representative.
If I was his official representative, I'd be getting a lot more cash to be here than I am now, because you don't pay me anything and neither does he. So I am not an official Elon Musk representative. And to be honest, I want to divulge myself or take away Elon Musk from this news story, but I can't, because he's involved in like everything transportation related that is cool, like the Hyperloop. So this news story ran in the Washington Post a couple weeks ago on February 16th, and it was an article that was written by Michael Laras and Jonathan O'Connell, basically saying a slice of pavement near the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives in the District of Columbia could be the gritty precursor to a tunnel network that could propel pods filled with people and speeding platforms topped with Teslas and Toyotas and GMC Sierra 4x4s between the nation's capital and New York in 29 minutes. 29 minutes. That's wow. You could go up there, you could watch a movie, you could watch a play, and you can come back. It would be awesome for this to actually happen. I wonder how much it's going to cost. But anyway, the Boring Company, which is owned by Elon Musk, that's where Elon Musk comes in here, has received the early and vague building permit from the DC government. That's the District of Columbia government, not the United States government, but the government of the District of Columbia, that will allow some preparatory and excavation work at the fenced-off parking lot at 53 New York Avenue, besides a McDonald's. So that's good. They can have lunch. And amidst the construction cranes of Washington booming Noma neighborhood. So I asked about the permit, which was issued way back in November 29th. We didn't run a news story back then on this just because there was so much else happening in the world of geek and space. So a Boring Company spokesman said on Friday that a New York Avenue location, if constructed, could become a station in a broad network of such stops across the new system. So the district's Department of Transportation is trying to figure out what other permits the Boring Company would need to cut under the city roads and public spaces. Apparently, this is all new, like legal stuff, and they don't know what kind of permits that you're going to need to go underneath electrical and sewer lines and water lines and so on and so forth, which I got some scratching my head because they have the metro. I mean, this is not new to them. They have tunnels there to begin with, but okay. Maryland officials, which, is just to the north of DC, said the tunnel would run under Maryland Route 295. The Baltimore-Washington leg would be the initial stretch in an entire East Coast system. The overall concept is that these pods, with perhaps about 16 people in them each, could speed around on electric sleds. Those sleds could carry individual cars to and from numerous stations. There would be a main artery, and then there would be spurs connecting to various other stations. Elevators would take people up and down to the tunnels. I don't know about that. I mean, in Washington, D.C., if you've ever been to Washington, D.C., they have escalators, they have stairs, so it's not necessarily elevators that are needed, but they're saying elevators would take people up and down to the tunnels, and those tunnels would be built relatively close to the surface without disturbing buildings and other structures. Good luck with that, guys. I mean, if you're screwing around underneath the foundation of a building, you're going to affect the building, right, Chris?
One would think.
Yeah. So, but here's the deal.
I like how you just pass that to Chris, like he's got firsthand experience with it. It's like
I am an expert. Thank you very much. I'm an expert at backing up SP on a blind toss because someone taught me how to handle blind tosses throughout, 229 episodes of a podcast.
In my defense, he did start to say something, so I figured he had something to say, so I thought it would. Anyway, these stations... Yeah, exactly. These stations are unique. They're not going to be the grand central station. They're going to be somewhat modest affairs and numerous. There's going to be a lot more of them, but they're going to be smaller. They're not going to be grand in scale like the Union Station. So this is all interesting. This is more Jetsons level stuff where you have these individual cars rather than these long trains that you see in subways and commuter trains. So we'll see what happens. I don't know, 29 minutes from point A to point B, and you can take your car with you. That'd be awesome. Plus
the bonus of a McDonald's right there. So there you go. That's the selling point.
If you have a Mac attack, you got to have one.
I'll order a Big Mac and a Hyperloop ticket. Thank you.
We just need to build the tubes from Futurama.
Yes, absolutely. Let me ask you this there, Stargate Pioneer. What is the chance of there actually being further development with this? Because it's all well and good to have the permits, but don't you think this seems a little ambitious?
Do you know how long it takes to build a tunnel, to build a train, a tunnel underneath anything?
It took me a very long time to build the one under your house. That's true.
It's true, it did.
Yeah, because I kept on throwing dynamite down there. Yeah. But it takes a while. So the technology of the Hyperloop still has to advance. It's still under R&D, but at the same time, the Boring Company has to advance its technology to create these tunnels to begin with. And that's what they're doing here. It's a simultaneous development. It's the same thing that Elon Musk has done with the SpaceX vehicles, the launch vehicles, where he's simultaneously developing the technology to launch them as well as to recover them. And I mean, it's a holistic system that he's developing. And you could say the same thing with Tesla, that he's simultaneously developing the technology of the cars as well as the supercharging stations to go along with them. So he's thinking big terms here. He's thinking big picture, and he knows that everything has to be in place in order for this to work. So while this might take a while, if he still charges forward with it, I think we're going to have some sort of Hyperloop available to us in 10, 15 years.
Cool. You said that though something about 39 minutes could be the travel time. Is that what you said?
29 between DC and New York. Yeah.
Okay. So what you're saying, and there's probably going to be an opening safety announcement. So really, like, people are going to have like a 25-minute podcast listening experience. So look for the all-new 25-minute Gonna Geek show coming in 2030.
I'd go 24 minutes and 43 seconds.
Okay. Sounds good. Makes sense. And plus, that'll pretty much only leave having to have me removed from the show, because I usually take up 49 minutes in itself.
Also accurate.
It's your editing, so you can be in the show as much or as little as you want.
Well, fun fact, most people who don't show up to the live show think that JS is not on the show anymore. He's all edited out. I take him all out these days.
That's amazing work. Yeah.
Don't forget Kiwi.
Michelle, would you try a Hyperloop if it was in existence?
I suppose it's just interesting. Elon is taking us to space, and now he wants to take us from point A to point B on Earth. I just feel like in the future we're going to have, NASA brought to you by Elon Musk, and we're going to be driving on, Musk ways in our Teslas, and that's going to be our life. He's a gosh. I hope he's not a Bond villain.
It would be a pretty awesome setup, though, if he was. Like, how could you not take him seriously with that sort of commitment?
He's doing all this in public.
Yeah.
So it's like we see the workings, and those of us who are geeks, we're like, that's kind of like Lex Luthor.
So true. So
I don't
true.
know. It could be like Wayne Enterprises. I mean, there could be a good part to come out of it.
One of the things about Bruce Wayne is that instead of taking all that money that he used to become Batman, he could have used it to actually invest in Gotham and to create jobs and lift people out of poverty. And that is like the number one way to reduce crime is to reduce poverty and give people jobs and good places to live.
You heard it here first, folks. Michelle wants to make Gotham great again.
All right, so let's go to something that is very good, and that is that comic book ordering just got easier, right, Michelle?
Yes, ordering is about to get easier, but DC and Marvel is going to make it difficult for us to figure out what to order. So the good news first. Diamond, who is the monopoly, that's the comic book distributor, announced a new digital service called the Pull Box, designed to give comics readers a simple, consistent way to track the comics they have on order at their local comic store. As long as your local store is synced to the service, you'll be able to manage your purchases, add new titles, and track when next issues are set to come out. And all of your money is still going to your local store. So it's just a nice way to see what you have, to add something. Very, very nice. But
oh no, there's always a
but. So let's say you're a DC fan and you're like, oh my goodness, I want to order Super Sons in the future, or maybe Trinity. Well, too bad, because Justice League of America, Batgirl and the Birds of Prey, Super Sons, Supergirl, Trinity, Titans, and Teen Titans seem to be canceled, but maybe they'll come back in the future. They're not canceled because of sales, but they're canceled to clear the slate for special events. It is expected that some or all of these titles will be relaunched following the events of Justice League No Justice, Man of Steel, and Flash War. Scott Snyder's Justice League run, launching out of No Justice, seems likely to be getting a new #1 this summer alongside Brian Michael Bendis' Superman.
It's like most of my DC poll list right there. Justice League of America, Batgirl, and the Birds of Prey, Super Son, Supergirl, Trinity, Titans, and T-Titans. Come on, that is literally at least half of my DC poll list.
Oh, and they also canceled Bombshells. So if you were a fan of that, that's gone too.
That was a great series.
I know. So all of the Superman characters need to be consolidated because the Brian Michael Bendis has been given the keys to the Superman kingdom. So whatever he wants to do with them, he can do with them. And it's, up to what happens afterwards if some of these titles come back.
It's great to get all these Marvel creators over to DC that are good, but don't bring the bad Marvel stuff with you.
That's crazy. Wow. So comics is definitely in another chaotic state right now. Hey, they're still grasping here, and reminds me so much of the New 52 era of where new things were being tried to make it easier for people. Then you had some creator shifts. You had some cancellations and a whole bunch of shuffle. Like, this just reminds me of 5 years ago all over. This is crazy.
Well, it's not as crazy as what Marvel is doing. So Marvel is ushering in a fresh start in May for its entire superhero publishing line. Maybe some of you might remember Marvel Legacy. Well, that was announced back in April 2017, like barely a year ago. Marvel Legacy was heralded as a blend of the old and the new, returning the publisher's longest-running titles to their original numbering. For example, The Amazing Spider-Man jumped from issue 32 to issue 789 in a matter of a month. It was a confusing system, so with the May relaunch, some or all books will revert to their pre-Legacy numbering. Which ones, we really don't know. We only know that one book that certainly won't employ Legacy numbering is Avengers, which gets a new #1 issue when it launches in May.
Again?
One book that will use both numbering systems is Black Panther, which relaunches on May 23rd, sending the Black Panther into space. So I have talked to my owner of my local comic books shop, and things like this drive him crazy because he has to cancel old numbers and then he has to reorder the new numbers. And then customers, even though we're going to have this great app by Diamond to help us order and keep track of things, we don't know what to keep track of when it comes to events like this from Marvel and DC. It's becoming difficult to remain a comic book fan sometimes.
That's easy. Just stop reading the big two. I only read Spider-Man and Star Wars out of the big two anymore. I go to Boom Studios, for instance, and I'm reading Mighty Morphin Power Rangers there, and it's one of the best runs I've read in a long time. And they've been gearing up for stuff for over 2 years. There's some great image books out there. Saga is still fantastic. Walking Dead still is very good at times. Other times, not so much now. Bear in mind, I'm also probably 12 issues behind. But Walking Dead's a great read. So I used to scoff when people are like, I just don't read the superhero comics anymore. And now I'm going, oh, wait, I only read like one of the superhero comics anymore. Oh, crap.
Yeah. This whole numbering thing, though, is exactly what I was saying again a minute ago. This is just stinking of how many years ago. You can tell that the big two are just stuck, and that's the only way I think best describes it. Is they're just stuck trying to make momentum forward, and they're doing the same tricks over and over and over again. They reboot, they rename, they go back. this is the vicious cycle that's been happening for the last 5-10 years, and it's a shame. And it makes things confusing, you know, not only for the reader, but also, like Michelle said, all of the infrastructure. And it sucks. It really sucks. I've got a whole stack of number ones that I was just about to dig out, and then got distracted by my amazing Star Trek Book of Opposites book. So then I abandoned it, which is awesome. It's like the best kids book ever, if you ask me. Maybe I'll do a full review on that one day. But
you sure that's not too advanced for you?
Yeah, that's why I haven't read it to the kids yet. I'm still trying to get someone to help me with it. But
he's still practicing.
But seriously, though, this is exactly what keeps happening over and over and over again. And it's annoying. It's annoying. And if it was a explicit podcast, I would say what it's annoying as.
I just dropped 3 links in the chat, and there are independent comics that I am enjoying. I haven't talked about it much, but Port of Earth, Horizon, and The Lost Fleet Corsair. I mean, these are good comics, at least for me. I like them. They're up my alley. They're great. For me, they're entertaining, and I like them. And it's a chore to go over to the Marvel and the DC wall and go, all right, what do I have to pick up to keep current on stuff? And I don't know if they're going to reboot both DC and Marvel, I might just be out and just go to the independents from now on. It's just too much money I give to those guys to be screwing around with me like this, especially with DC. Rebirth was the best single string of books that I have read since I started getting into comics just a few years ago. And for them to say, oh, we're making money at it, but no, we need to get rid of it. What, DC? What are you smoking? Seriously, you need to do stuff for the fans and create those longevity things that fans can actually curate their collections and go for it, because that's where you're going to make the big bucks long term. I'm so mad at them.
Well, I mean, the problem is, and this is something that was said to me at C2E2 when I was at one of the retailer summits probably 5-6 years ago. Marvel came in there and straight up gave zero craps. Like, yeah, do you realize how much money we make off the movies? The comics have kind of become a secondary thing. And now you kind of see it's more of just, hey, there's a movie, let's cash in on it and get more comics out there. So I think that's the problem you're seeing with the two big companies, is being backed by Disney and backed by Warner Brothers. There's not as much focus on, how do I put this, the spirit of the comic, for lack of a better term. And you see more of that in the indie side now. Like I was saying, there are some indie titles out there that are fantastic, that are creator owned. And there's also some licenses that are great. I talked about the Power Rangers book. Dynamite has the license to John Wick. So if you like the John Wick movies, you can go check out the John Wick comic over on Dynamite. Go look through the independent section of your local comic shop. You're going to find something that looks interesting there. If you want to try and find something to jump onto, they regularly do like dollar Image #1 books. So basically you can give something a try and see if you like it. Image and Dynamite and Boom Studios constantly have sales on Comixology where it's like, hey, pick up a bunch of our back catalog to get interested in stuff. Try some of these other books out and you might find some stuff that you really like. And you don't have to throw all your money to the big two. You can find some things that tickle that superhero fancy you have. Like Invincible just wrapped its run on Image. It's supposed to be fantastic. Anthony Bachman raves about it. Now that it's over, I'm probably going to go and start reading it. Robert Kirkman, who did The Walking Dead, did that book for the entire run, and it's supposed to be a great superhero story. Seriously, indie books, try them out. I'm sure you'll find something you love.
But this isn't anything new, right? Like when I was doing the Family Buzz comic book podcast, this was the same story. And what happens is you've got so many eyes coming to comics right now that I think that's part of the challenge, is we get the people who come in, like we've had the readers who are new as of like the last few years. They get so excited, and now they get put through the ringer like so many long-term comic book readers. And so now they're going off, like SP. He's an example. He's now going off to indie stuff. This is exactly what happened when I was doing the Fanboy Buzz. Towards the end of the run, yeah, sure, we talked about some of the big two for obvious reasons. We were a comic book podcast, but the meat and the potato of what we really liked was always coming out of indies. It's this vicious cycle, and I think that at one point they just need to hold their ground, the big two, and just keep on with the story and find a way to inject life in without rebooting, because the rebooting, the renumbering, it just hurts the big picture, in my opinion.
It's exhausting trying to keep up with all the reboots, all the mega events and stuff like that. I don't have it in me anymore. I'm like, yep, I don't care about this. I don't want to have to buy the main book and then the 17 tie-in issues that are coming out this month. Nope. If I care, I'll pick it up in Comixology 3 years from now when they do a sale on it. Let me go give my money to something else.
What's funny is I actually was at C2E2 last year when they actually announced Marvel Legacy. So it's just really funny for me remembering this big launch that they were doing, and now they're just sort of getting away with it. And with DC, they paid a lot of money for Bendis, I believe. And they're giving him the keys to Superman, and they're clearing the slate so he can do what he wants. And I read a lot of indies as well. Monstrous is an amazing book, amazing art. It's high fantasy, steampunk, dark, very interesting. It's very difficult to describe, but I highly recommend it.
Well, we'll see what happens here, and I'm sure we'll talk about comics in future episodes because it's just there's always something that's making us mad. We're geeks. It'll always make us mad. You know what else might make you mad? If you gotta take up this mail-in offer from the OnePlus, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah, this would be frustrating. So I like to talk about cell phones and gadgets. I do a lot of research on them because I'm constantly trying to figure out how to upgrade. Yet I still have not given up my trusty Nexus 6P because it's still serving me well. But one of the phones I'd been looking at is by a Chinese vendor by the name of OnePlus. They put out the OnePlus 5 and then a revision that was the OnePlus 5T this last year. Well, back in September, there was kind of a big hubbub that came out when they found out that neither of the newest OnePlus phones, the 5 and the 5T, could stream video in high definition. So you're paying for high definition. You've got a 1080p screen. You're only getting Netflix and Amazon Video at 480p. Well, worry not. They do have a solution. You have to get an update for it, and it's problematic. Why is it problematic? Because the only way to get it is to mail your phone to OnePlus for them to take care of the problem. Community manager David Y explained on the forums that the devices had to be mailed in because the phone must be physically hooked up to an authenticated PC at the company. He also says that the company is going to cover the shipping costs in North America, Europe, India, and China, and that users should expect their phone back within 5 working days once they receive it. So why does this have to happen? Because they didn't have the right DRM in place to allow you to stream HD content. It did not have support for Google's Widevine Level 1 DRM, nor Widevine Level 3. So they're basically sending it back in for it to go to an authenticated computer for them to put that DRM on your phone. So my question for you guys, A, would you care if you were a OnePlus user? Would you be willing to give up your phone for potentially 10 days and have no other device to get 1080p streaming in place? And B, what the hell were they thinking?
Okay, I'll start with my answer would be yes, I would immediately start processing to get it sent off because I might not need it now, but who knows in the lifespan of the phone if I do need it, and who knows how long they will offer this. So I would immediately get going on this and find an alternative phone so that I can get this sent off. And secondly, I will just say that this is why the good old days that you could just copy everything willy-nilly. Who cares about copyright laws? That was the good old days. It's all DRM's fault.
You single-handedly brought down Napster?
I might have been that guy. I might have been that guy. And funny enough, I also am the frontman for Metallica who sued Napster. So there you go. It was win-win for me.
Playing both sides as always. Yeah, I don't care because I'm going to get something that works like an iPhone.
You know, it's not good for OnePlus because of the fact that a lot of people are skeptical of these less expensive phones. So some people have just heard about possible OnePlus warranty problems, and it's just not good to see an example like this. Even though their phones are a lot less expensive, it sucks when you can't do something basic like proper HD streaming.
Well, I mean, and if you're a user, what are you supposed to do? Most people don't have a backup phone. So for 10 days, 10 to 15 days potentially, when you factor in shipping time on both sides, you're without your phone. In a world today where most people don't have landlines, where they rely on Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or Snapchat or things like that to basically communicate with other folks. They're not picking up the landline and calling their buddy. So you're tethered to a laptop. You don't have access to any of your apps on the go anymore. It's definitely a first world problem, but it would annoy the heck out of me because while I might have a backup phone if I was lucky, I paid good money for this with the expectation that, it's a 1080p screen. I should be able to stream in 1080p, yet it doesn't work.
You'd be living off the grid, man. You'd be like, yeah, it would be awesome. I can't
do it now. I can't do it. I'm too addicted.
Well, you better get used to it, because with net neutrality gone, you're going to be living off the grid sooner than you think.
I can't hear you as Comcast throttles me.
Well, the time is probably going to get longer as more people send in their phones.
Yeah.
And then they have to, all of a sudden, it's like, oh my goodness, we had 10 phones and now we have 50 phones. And oh my goodness, now there's 500 phones. It could be anywhere 2 weeks to a month then.
Yeah. I think that it is something that people still should try to send it in, because it is a pretty important feature, being able to stream HD. It's only going to become more dependent as there's more streaming services and whatnot out there. Then that's my opinion, but I don't know. You're right. 10 days is a long time. Maybe 2 months. Michelle could be completely right on that. It might take a long time.
I think Kent in the chat asked the correct question. Did they really sell that many OnePlus units?
Fair point. Fair point. All right. Well, moving on to our extra news section here. We'll just hit on a couple of quick picks here. First off, let's talk a little bit about something called iCloud. If you're not familiar with iCloud, I'm going to say it like that every time. iCloud. It is a service that is cloud-based for iPhone users. That's what iCloud is. And we all know what it is, but for a long time, people have been told that iCloud actually runs off of a couple of main cloud-based services. There's Azure, which is made by Microsoft, as well as the Amazon Web Services, I think it is. Anyways, the Amazon CloudFront, the Amazon AWS. And the rumors have been around for the last couple of years that iCloud actually got in bed with Google and started to use Google cloud-based services. Well, it was never confirmed until Google published their latest version of the iOS security guide. This is a PDF that they put out occasionally. And this time it removed references from, I believe it was Microsoft Azure, and instead referenced Google's cloud. So yes, it does appear that the iCloud services is at least partially running on the old Google.
That's funny.
You like it, Chris. You know it.
Look, it's cloud services. Everyone buys these things wherever. I mean, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google are some of the biggest vendors out there for buying up cloud space, buying up servers to use in their server farms. So it sort of makes sense. Do we really think Apple is running their own giant server farm for iCloud?
No, but let me put this idea in your mind. 2016, Apple allegedly changed to Google. We have no confirmation of that, but 2016 that happened. There was several different leaks of celebrities around that era of certain photos.
Well, let's bear in mind that while they might be using other people's hardware, they're responsible for a lot of the maintaining of it, I wager, and the software that runs on top of it is their responsibility.
Plus, I'm pretty sure it was phishing. But anyways, I just wanted to try to put those dots in there and see if people would connect them. But I'd never connected those dots, legally speaking. Also, this one here is about a very shocking thing that came out today, and it's that Kevin Smith, no word of a lie, nearly died today. The day we're recording this on February 26th, 2018. And yes, he posted this morning a big post saying that during a set that he was doing, he essentially ended up going to hospital because somebody essentially forced him to go to hospital. And yes, they did end up he was diagnosed with having a 100% blockage of his LAD artery, which is known as the Widowmaker, which basically is known as that because if you don't treat it right away, you die. So it's very, very scary thing, I'm sure, for him, and it's very shocking to hear, because he's Kevin Smith. He's had a lot of impact on geek culture and podcasts, for that matter. So I wanted to mention that it appears that recovery is going well as we record this today, but quite surprising, and hopefully his recovery does continue to be good.
Dude is younger than me, so that puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
It was Jason Mewes' wife, Jordan, and his business manager that forced him to go to the hospital by calling the ambulance. He said in his Instagram post, they canceled his second comedy show of the night because he did the first one. He felt terrible, was sweating, uncomfortable. And he said if he had stayed to do the second comedy act, he would have died.
Wow. Yeah. And anytime you hear about heart disease, it just gives you a bit of a wake-up call about how quickly it can happen, right? So again, we do hope that he has a very good recovery.
Well, that's what Carrie Fisher died of, right? Is a massive heart attack.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's crazy.
So it happens. Yeah,
absolutely. But that is going to take us to the end of the news. If you got something that you think we should talk about, please send it in to us. You can email show@gonnageek.com and we'll talk about it on the next episode probably. So go ahead and email us. That's show@gonnageek.com. But let's go ahead and move on to one of my favorite segments. It's Geek Wars. That's right. It's time for another edition of your favorite wars. It's the Geek Wars. If you're not familiar with Geek Wars, this is the game where I pit a bunch of geeks head to head as they argue about who is the biggest geek. And we're going to go figure this out today. I have prepared a series of questions, and the way this works is that I will ask a question, and the geeks here, the players, we have a few that we've selected from the studio audience, they are going to ring in by saying their name, and whatever their individual name is, they will say their name, and that means that they have a chance to answer. If they do not answer correctly, it can be answered by the remaining geeks until there are no geeks left, to which the point will go to me. So that's how Geek Wars works. And if you do have a tie at the end of it, then I end up breaking the tie by stripping them both of their clothing. Never mind. Actually, that's a whole other fantasy of mine. So we'll go ahead and move on here. So
when did it change that you got a point? This is not fair for the overlord and decider of the game to actually be in the game.
I'm too lazy to count a fourth person, so we both know that I'm not going to get any points because I'm lazy. I'm still trying to read that book of opposites. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with question number 1. As a callback, of course, to last week's wonderful news point about an amazing Star Trek Voyager episode, I have a Star Trek Voyager related question. In the Star Trek Voyager episode, the 37s, what did they find floating in space? And I will take the most accurate answer. So this was the 37s. They found something floating in space. No Googling. No Googling.
Chris,
what would you like?
What is stuff?
That is the most accurate answer so far. Chris, you currently have the point.
They found, I believe, 3 individuals from whatever, like 1937 or 2037 or something like that.
No.
Okay.
Michelle, care to answer?
A car.
Michelle gets the most correct answer because it was a 1936 Ford truck.
Okay.
That's why SP doesn't know it, because he only likes the GMCs, right, SP?
Yeah, me and the Ford trucks have had a history. So, yeah, I don't know too much about them anymore, intentionally.
All right, so Michelle is at 1, SP is at 0, Chris is at 0.
Kent got it right.
I know he did get it right, and I was hoping you guys didn't read that. All right, question number 2, and we're going to go ahead and go with the first person to buzz in. No more delayed questions, because otherwise the chat's going to spoil it for you. Name this Star Wars Episode 1 game released April 1999 that was not an action adventure. Tick tock, tick tock.
Chris.
All right, Chris, what is it?
It was a Star Wars pod racer.
Anybody else care to answer? I will give that point unless somebody gets the exact name. No? All right, Chris gets the point. It was technically Star Wars Racer.
Oh, my bad.
Exactly.
I had that game on my N64, and it was actually fun in the arcades.
It was actually surprisingly fun when you had people playing that you knew. I played that quite a bit on the PC. It was quite a bit of fun. Let me ask you this, Chris. How much money did you spend at said arcade?
Probably $5 when it was all said and done, because I had it on my N64, so I didn't play it at the arcade very often.
Oh, well, that's disappointing. I was hoping you were like $300. All right, question number 3. Speaking of Star Wars, we all know that there's a Star Wars expansion coming to Disney soon. But what is the name of the Star Wars-based attraction that opened in 1987 in Disney?
Chris.
SP.
Oh, Chris barely beat you. Barely beat you.
Star Tours.
There you go. Chris is at 2. Chris is at 2. Michelle's at 1. SP is at 0. Question number 4, which, by the way, this is a special shout out for our live audience member, Albert Sims. Name the manufacturer and brand of the first ever clamshell/flip phone.
Oh. Chris?
All right, Chris, what is it?
Motorola StarTech?
Wow, that is absolutely correct. Point number 3 for Chris.
Oh, I pulled that one out of the ether.
All right, question number 5. We've got Ben Browder and Claudia Black are best known as the duo from Farscape. What other sci-fi series?
Chris.
SP? What is it?
Stargate SG-1 seasons 9 and 10.
There you go. And the
Yep.
remaining part of the question was, what other sci-fi series were they paired up on? So yes, it was Stargate SG-1, which, by the way, still only Stargate I've ever watched, aside from an occasional random episode somewhere, is the original movie. There you go. Fun fact.
Well, they're going to be rebooting it soon enough anyway, so you can enjoy it all over again.
And in the chat, we have Seth saying that everybody seemed to have a StarTAC at some time. Those things were bricks. They could last forever. It seemed everybody had one. And I'd actually know somebody who had one until their carrier said, sorry, we are not supporting this technology anymore.
Didn't they evolve the model over time where, you know, the flip part used to be thick and then it went just to a thin cover?
I think so, unless that was a different one, but I think so. Yeah, you might be right on that.
I had both.
All right, so the current leader is Chris with 3, SP with 1, and Michelle with 1.
On the board.
Next question. What was the name? This is a callback, by the way. What was the name of the guy who everybody automatically friended on MySpace?
Chris.
Chris?
Tom.
Anybody care for the full name? No, it was Tom Anderson, but I'm giving Chris the point because I just wanted Tom.
He was just MySpace Tom.
He was MySpace Tom. Yeah, you don't remember that?
Fun fact, I never had a MySpace page.
Oh, wow. Everybody automatically, you sign up and you were friends with Tom. Tom was the creator, I believe it was. So
yeah, I never had MySpace either.
All right, we got a few questions left. Before his time on The Big Bang Theory, Johnny Galecki was in this iconic movie playing a character named Rusty.
Chris?
All right, Chris.
What's the Sandlot?
That is incorrect. Anybody else?
SP.
SP, what is it?
I'm going to go Stand By Me, but I know it's wrong.
No, Michelle. And again, it's before his time on Big Bang Theory. Johnny Galecki was in this iconic movie playing a character named Rusty. No.
I have no clue.
It was National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh, son of a
Oh,
gun.
man. He was Rusty in that?
He
I
was
had
Rusty.
no idea.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I will always remember that now. Awesome.
And in the chat, by the way, we have Suncast saying, remind me to never take you guys to trivia night. Yeah.
I used to be good at it.
I take umbrage to that. I've won Geek Wars trivia nights at the local pub here because I knew the Cantina band's name in episode 4.
What was it?
Figure on Dawn and the Modal Nodes.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Wow.
All right, so really we've got two left, so Chris is one, but we'll go through these anyways. But
The final question's worth 10 points.
the next one, you know what? I will make it interesting. I'll make the final question worth a point for every one that you can name. So there you go. So the second to last question is name the actor who played Lieutenant Hawk in Star Trek First Contact.
Chris.
All right, Chris, what is it?
Neil McDonough.
It is indeed, yes. I just had to watch that scene today, by the way, where he gets assimilated. He was so good in that. I liked him. And the final question, which I will give you 1 point for every correct answer, is name the 5 characters who were featured on the New 52 free issue introduction guide. There was 5 found on there. All right, Chris buzzed in first. What was it, Chris?
Superman.
All right, so that puts you up to 6. Anybody?
Batman.
7.
Wonder Woman.
Give me a list, okay?
Cyborg.
No, now you're wrong. So you got 8. That means that there are 2 others remaining. Anybody else care to take a guess? Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
Green Arrow.
No.
Green Lantern.
And the last one?
Look at your t-shirt, Steven.
The Flash.
It was the Flash. So there you go. I'll give you each one. It was actually, by the way, the Green Lantern was that run where Sinestro was the Green Lantern. Everybody remember that one?
Yep. Hal Jordan was dead, wasn't he, technically?
I think so.
At that point in time?
Yeah. So there you go. That's another edition of Geek Wars with Chris dominating this one. He got a whopping 8 points because I tried to throw Michelle and SB a bone at the end and it completely backfired. And Michelle and SB got 2. So good job, Chris. You won. No more ties.
Again.
All right. But I do want to say this, that I had the New 52 question in there before our whole conversation with the comics. And I wanted to put it in there because I like to remind people as much as possible that reboots is not a new thing. I freaking hate how much they do the reboots in the world of Marvel and DC.
Well, they didn't always reboot, though. I mean, this is a recent thing. This
10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's recent in terms of comics.
Well, is it really, though? Because one could argue.
How far back does Batman go? Superman. I mean, you're talking like
pretty far
before World War II.
Well,
yeah, Superman's going to have his 1000th issue and stuff. So that's a very long time.
Wouldn't Crisis be considered a reboot? And that was 86.
Yeah, well, Crisis was supposed to be a cleaning up of everything. And I guess you could probably say that is, the vector, the starting point, because then you had pre-crisis, post-crisis, and then you had other things, everything changing.
Yeah, but that's like 86. That's 30 odd years, right? So that's quite a history of this weird cycle. So, anyways, now I'm ranting again. We'll stop. But congratulations to our winner of this episode of Geek Wars, Chris Farrell. Chris, I don't even know where my bell is. It's missing, so I can't even ring you a bell. Ding, ding, ding. That's my congratulations bell. Good job.
Thank you. I appreciate the congratulations. Cool. Thanks.
I think.
All right, so now we got to go watch or check out the Star Tours exhibit while we're on our StarTAC phones while we're playing Star Wars Racer. That's what we got to do now.
Did you go for a trend here of having star in a bunch of these answers?
I was considering originally doing a theme with all like space debris, and then I'm like, no, that would be boring. So I just left that alone.
Well, on Twitter the other day, I was perusing it and I liked a tweet, and it was from a guy that bought, just this guy guy who you might or might not know, I don't know, who bought in cosplay the same video camera that Marty McFly used in Back to the Future. He got it for $10. Happens to be AC of Game Life Balance Australia. He's putting together a Marty McFly cosplay, and he actually got the actual video camera that was used in the film. So if you want to check that out, go to his Twitter feed at ProdTally. That's PRODTALLY, and give it a like.
That's fantastic, and that is an amazing camera. So what a score at $10, because it's not going to probably work, but for a prop, it's iconic, right? It's absolutely iconic. So let's go ahead and head towards wrapping up our show. But before we do that, I just want to remind you that we are part of the Gonna Geek Network, and also on the Gonna Geek Network is a plethora of amazing geeky podcasts, including Game Life Balance US. Oh, the US edition of Game Life Balance US. You can check that out at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Cody and John are always up to some form of geekery, usually in this current run of Game Life Balance US. They are talking about SNES Classic games. You should really check that out. It's a lot of fun. And if you don't have an SNES Classic, you can be jealous as you hear them talk about their SNES Classics.
Feel the jealousy.
Michelle, I wanted to thank you for coming on here again. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. And why don't you just give another special shout out to where everybody can find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Michelle Ealey. And again, I'm a co-host of the Starlight Tribune and a consultant for Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.
And I have to say that you've been awesome on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's I always say this, that I think that you have really great insight to different episodes and whatnot, and it's really nice to hear that insight on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. and your interaction with everybody on there. The whole team works so well together. So great job. You've been awesome over there. Kudos.
Thank you very much. Yeah, working with Haley and Lauren is awesome, and SP pushes the buttons, so we have to give him, some credit.
I don't push their buttons. I just push buttons. Yeah. I think it's safe to say that the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast would have folded in 2018 had Michelle not come on board as a consultant, gotten a little cash underneath the table, and brought the show back up to its high performance level. So thank you very much, Michelle.
You're welcome.
How do you fold a podcast? It's a digital file. I don't understand that.
Fold in space and time.
Oh, gotcha.
It's magical.
Awesome. So for episode 229 of the official GonnaGeek.com show, I'm Stephen John Drew saying this podcast is going to be rebooted. Here comes episode 1.
Marty, it's your kids. It's your kids.
I'm the champion.
If you have the hammer, you better get a deuce.
Bye.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or a thumbs up on YouTube. You can always join us for our live recording sessions, which stream Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at www.geeks.live. And remember, you can find our full back catalog at GonnaGeek.com/show. If you're itching for more geeky content, check out other shows on GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Voice work was by Emily Prokop of the Story Behind podcast. That's it for this episode. We hope to see you back again next week.